Hello，你大家好。今日咧，我哋就依家喺我哋相熟嘅律師卡洛斯嘅律師樓。咁咧我一直咧都覺得葡萄牙嘅遺產稅咧係幾有趣嘅。咁我就想問下專業嘅人士啦，咁同我哋講解關於葡萄牙嘅遺產稅嘅關係同埋我哋嘅得着啦。因為咧真係咧完全同英國或者香港嘅遺產稅係好唔同嘅。咁咧係根據歐洲嘅遺產稅嚟嘅分別嘅，咁所以我哋而家傾一傾啦。好 ，Carlos，hello 你哋好，所有人，我哋而家係 interview Carlos。OK，so we are going to talk about inheritance law in Portugal, which to me is quite a new concept, if you like. Can we just have a little bit of insight about marriage first? So when you're buying a property in Portugal, do you have to put your wife's name on it? Imagine you and your children's name on it.
Okay, so if you are married already, because you have to understand that we have before marriage and after marriage, okay? So if you are already married and you're buying some property, it depends on what kind of regime you choose when you got married. We have three types of regime in Portugal, okay? One, we call it the separate regime. It means that whatever you buy, because you choose separate.
This is very interesting.
Whatever you buy, because it's separate, you can say, okay, I'm married to this person, but I only buy this property on my name, and we choose the separate regime. It means that property belongs to me, whatever happened in the future. If I got divorced, whatever I do, it belongs only to me. When you check the documents, they say, but on the document says, the name of Carlos married to this lady, and that lady also have rights? No, they only have rights if that property is the house where you're living together as a family. That house does not belongs to her, but if you want to sell the property, you need the consent of your wife.
So let me.
So that was the first part of the marriage.
So there's three types of regime when you get married. Okay, one that says that it's separate everything together from each other. There's another regime that says that after marriage you can share all properties because all properties will be together. And there's another regime that we call it all included. It means that when you got married, what you have before the marriage, what we will have after the marriage, always belong to both couples. Okay, there are some specific conditions that you have to be aware when you choose the regime. So you cannot, after you get married, you cannot change the regime anymore.
Oh, right.
Okay, this is important.
You have to decide it.
You have to decide what kind of regime you want. So I'm going to get married tomorrow. I have to tell the regime will be all together after the marriage or all separate. Okay? So if I buy a property on all together, it means the property will belong to both. If I buy a property after the marriage, it means that the property will belongs to both if it's after the marriage. And if I choose separate, it doesn't matter if I buy after being married, but that property belongs to only one of the persons, only the person that is buying. Unless, of course, some people say, but they went to the bank and they request a mortgage. So the mortgage for both, they have to share the both. But I can go, for example, if I'm married to someone else, and I can go to the bank, I say, I'm married with separate regime. I want a mortgage only on my name, and I will buy this property, and that property will belong only to me. So one day, if I got divorced, that property is only mine. It's 100% mine, and I don't need to share with my ex-wife on that moment when I got divorced. Okay?
Okay. That's the marriage part. But what if someone is coming from Hong Kong? They're already married.
Yeah.
They did not follow the Portuguese law.
No.
So imagine I'm coming from Hong Kong and I have a wife and children. And do I have to put my wife's name in the contract every time I buy a property?
When you buy a property, when there's a couple, for buying, just need one. And I believe the Hong Kong regime, it's when you buy something belong to all of them, right? Both of them.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter because you don't have these three types of regime like we have here. So whatever you do here in Portugal, you're buying a property like a couple, Mr. A and Mrs. B. Mr. A just signed the deed on his name, on his behalf. You don't need the wife to sign it because he's buying. On the property land registration office will have two names, like Mr. A buy this property, married to Mrs. B, okay? But for sell the property, they will need two signatures.
Okay.
The difference is that because your regime is all together, you only need two signatures. In the first case that I was explaining, that I married with separate regime, if I want to sell my property, I don't need to ask permission to my wife to sell it because I married only a separate regime. Unless that house is the house where I'm living as a family.
Mentioned the Hong Kong people. I personally bought a property and they said I have to put my husband's name on it. And we must be present when we're signing the deed, both people. Both
Right, when
parties.
you buy it.
Yes.
But in Portugal, you don't need.
That was in Portugal.
Yeah.
But it was in Portugal.
Because
They asked me.
Did you request any mortgage to the bank?
Yes.
So both make the mortgage.
Yeah.
So both has
to be present.
To be present
at the
that's
deed.
correct, that's
Okay.
correct.
Now, let's talk about inheritance law. So it's very different to UK law, as I know. Can you tell me what is inheritance law in Portugal? Like, what if I have 4 kids? How does it work?
Okay, just imagine it depending.
Do you have to write a will?
You don't need to write a will. It's not necessary. We have a law that says exactly how does it work if you don't write a will. But even if you write a will, you have several conditions that you have to follow. You cannot just say, I have 10 properties, I'll leave 10 properties for this son or for this person. It's not allowed by the Portuguese law. So your wife and your children, depending on the marriage status, when you got married, they have rights. So if you just get married with a separate regime, it means that your wife will not inherit anything besides the house they are living. Okay? But if you choose after the marriage or all together, it means that your wife, when I'm just talking about in case one of the persons die and they will have inheritance of, for example, 10 apartments. Okay?
Yeah.
So what is the rights of the family? So when Mr. A dies and half of the properties goes direct to the wife and the other half is for divide and split between the children and the wife as well.
Okay, so 50% to the wife,
Yes.
50% to the children.
No, not correctly. 50% to the wife
Yeah.
and the other 50% to the children and wife.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Let me try to explain to you. So, Mr. A just passed away and he has a Mrs. B and they have,
Does it matter if the property is under his name or not?
doesn't matter.
And this is what regime were we talking about?
Okay, just imagine he has 4 kids.
Yeah.
Okay, kids number A, B, C, D. So it means that Mr. A died, she has 50%,
Yeah.
and the other 50% is sharing for 5 people, 4 children
Okay.
plus the wife.
As an added party, the mother will be the added party for the
That's correct.
second half of
That's correct.
the property
That's correct.
ownership.
Actually, she will have 50% and plus some percentage because divided by 5
So it's basically like another 10% in this case.
in this case.
Yeah. Okay, so you don't have to write a will.
No.
That's really interesting because obviously in UK law and US law you have to write a will so you can decide who gets more, who gets less.
Okay, I'm sorry, you are interviewing me, but I have a question. If you don't write a will in UK, what happens?
The property will be shared equally.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Portugal, it's more or less the same according to these rules. So 50% for the wife, 50% for the children, including the wife as well. So you don't need to write a will. You can write a will and say, some part of my properties I can leave for someone special, but they have to compensate the other people from the same value.
Oh.
Or they can say some part or some property of my inheritance I can leave for someone outside my family, my direct family. It means my wife and my children. They say I can have some part that I want to give to, for example, someone that take care of me for a long time, and I will
Yeah.
appreciate. So, but she cannot never give the biggest part to this person.
Oh wow, really?
There's a way of many people doing that. Before they die, they are alive, they can sell, they can give to someone else. But for example, if they give to one of the children, they can give to some of the children, but the other 3 children, in this case it has 4 children, has to allow that
They have to give
donation.
permission
They have to give
even
permission,
before they die?
even before you die.
So imagine,
Or
wow.
sometimes, because depending how much you're giving in life.
Yeah.
If you're giving small thing, nobody will care, nobody will check. But the other children can say, listen, you are give to my brother, and he never asked me permission to give this one. Or I know that you give to him, and when you die, he already got his share, but we're not going to share with him. It means that the other 3 children, on this case, when they say, listen, you already received when father was alive, your share, we're not going to share with you anymore. This case also possible. There's always one part they can give, but always sooner or later they have to compensate the other 3.
Right.
So if the father wants to give everything one time to one child, benefit one person, it's not allowed.
Wow. 即係唔可以淨係成個身家俾其中一個子女，一定要其他子女係同意咯嚇。咁咧分身家嘅方面咧，唔可以話有偏心啦嚇呢個情況。Wow, that's it's quite amazing because in UK or US law, it's really up to you how you divide your money. I mean, there's plenty of people will give the money to the pet instead of the children, right?
Yeah, no. Here you
The
have very
cat or
strict
dog.
rules. You cannot exclude your children or your family.
You cannot.
Cannot.
Wow.
The only way you do it is while you're alive, you sell everything because you are selling. You're just making money.
But imagine if you sell everything. Let's say you have 2 million. What? I want
You
to.
sell and spend all the money. There's nothing for you.
But I want to
Nothing.
give it to my cat.
In Portugal, you cannot leave to your animals.
You cannot leave it to your animals?
No,
Really?
No.
Okay, there's many law in the US you
Yeah, I
can
know.
give it to your animals. You cannot? Okay. But what about if I just want to give it to my friend? Like someone who look after me
That's what I
instead
was
of my
telling.
children. But I sold all my property, that 2 million.
It's like this money. Nobody will control, right? Nobody will control. So if you want to give to them, to your friend, who's going to check? Okay, it's very difficult to control money.
But 2 million is a lot.
Yeah.
Or 20 million or whatever.
The property. Sorry to interrupt.
That's right.
I think it's Ruth's father is here.
Oh,
for
okay.
checking the documents. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
fine. Yeah, so we wrap it up. So basically, you cannot allow to share anything. Like if it's money, you think it's actually okay for people to
Because
give
the money you can give without controlling, but the properties you cannot.
to give to someone that you know.
Yes.
Okay. What about if you are not married? Has that partner got rights for the property?
Depending. If you live with that partner for more than 2 years and you have some documents to prove it, they will have some rights. Not rights of inheritance, but for example, if I find a girlfriend living with me in my home, she moves to my home, and if I pass away, and if my girlfriend can prove she was living with me already for the last 2 years, she needs some documents to prove it. She has the right to live in that house because she can say, I moved to his house, I was living with him.
But only to the house that they're living in.
Yeah, if I have 10 houses, they will have
But
received.
other property that you
She will
own.
not receive any other property.
Wow. Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So far, so good. And thanks for your interview.
Okay.
And
Bye bye, see you later.